being able to get the most important things accomplished each day is a skill set. Today's guest on the 25th Hour podcast is Amy Graves, who's the owner of AMG Innovative Consultants Incorporated. Amy spent 10 years turning failing stores into profitable, thriving businesses, and then transitioned into helping small business owners get found in Google. And you wonder, how did those two things connect? Listen into the podcast and you'll be able to find out. She is a certified business analyst and certified in Google Analytics. What I really appreciated about this episode is that Amy gave some really concrete strategies around SEO, things that are applicable to brick and mortar and also to service-based businesses. I also appreciate that she was truly open and authentic to share her bottleneck with us. It was the perfect stepping stone through one piece then another till we got to the actual root cause of her bottleneck, which is what is so common with the business owners that I work with. So listen in and enjoy. All right, Amy, let's jump right in. Woo! Will you please share, how did you get to where you are right now in this business? Because I know this is not where you started your professional career.
Not where I started. No, my journey actually started 20 years ago, if you can believe it. I was working retail and I became known as the rock star. I would fix people, go into a retail business and make them profitable. The story I typically lead with in my presentations is I was given my first store to really turn around. And the day they gave me the keys, they told me they were working on a severance package. 2.5 years later, I left them. We had done an $8 million increase in sales in 2.5 years.
Wow.
And I realized then I wanted to do more of that work, but not in the corporate world. By 2008, I was still in retail, but disabled. And I started this journey of what can I do to make myself better? And then I moved to California in 2018 and I'm like, yeah, I got to start my own business. It's time. So 20 years later, I started my company and that was March 2nd, 2020. California started the shutdown the next day. And 12 days later, my county shut down.
Oh, I did not realize that you started your new company right before. Wow.
Literally the day before California started their COVID shutdown, March 3rd. I opened March 2nd.
Oh my gosh.
But for me, I'm the type that I deal with reality, but I find that glimmer of hope to just hold on to so I don't get dragged down into depression. And COVID was my blessing. I'm a trained certified business analyst, and I'm like, I'm going to be a business analyst for small businesses and help them see where the root of their problem is and help them get better. And nobody wanted that. That was not smart. But because of COVID, I saw that there was this huge gap in understanding the virtual world for small businesses. So I spent the rest of 2020 from March to December going through marketing classes, search engine optimization classes, because the reality is we didn't know how to use Google to maximize our visibility. And everyone was paying for Google ads and not getting anywhere because they didn't have the core done. And that's what I do. I find what's the root cause of the problem? We're going to fix that. And I focus on free organic traffic. And it's been an amazing year. And next year is going to be phenomenal. Like I'm growing because I found the root cause. I can really get that out and help my people now. So yeah, that's the short abbreviated version of how I got here.
Well, if you could look back, like, what would you tell yourself 20 years ago? If you could go back.
If I could go back. So the funny thing is I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome back then. So, and someone else was just asking that the other day. And I'm like, the thing I would tell myself is you do understand what you're doing, just do it. Like, had I started my business 20 years ago, I probably would still, to some extent, be here. But I would have been much happier over the last 20 years. So yeah, if you ever are struggling and thinking, I just can't do this, you can. It's just, you got to take a deep breath and find what is that path to make it happen.
Right. Oh, I love your story. It reminds me of that 20 years to be an overnight success type of a story.
It's exactly what it feels like. Well, I guess it is, but
Yeah, you're like, oh, yes,
yeah,
it is
it
20
really
years.
is.
When you started your business and everything started to shut down, did you have any doubt and any thought of, I need to do something different? Like, obviously you switched what you thought you were going to do with your business, but did you have any of those, this is not the right time, I need a new plan?
It wasn't so much, it wasn't the right time that, but I absolutely thought, did I do the right thing? It wasn't even that COVID was part of the plan. It was, did I do the right thing? I mean, I didn't book my first client till December 2020. And when you go through that, when you're first starting your business, it's not going to open up and be successful right away. So I did a lot of networking. I'm doing a lot of training. I'm trying to get everything, but at the same time, by the time I booked my first client December 23rd, 2020, and I broke down crying when I got off the call. So I'm like, I finally booked my first client. Maybe I did do the right thing, but there's so much doubt leading up to when you book that first client. And given my excellent timing, it probably took longer than it normally would have.
Because I look at that and I think, okay, there's, like you said, you look for that silver lining in the cloud, because there's the blessing of you had a plan and you knew what you were going to do, and you were just going to transfer your entire skill set from corporate into small business.
Yeah.
And then you're like, they don't really want this.
Not understanding your ideal client. Like, how many times as small business owners are we told, look at who's your ideal client? What do they need? Not what do you want to give them?
Right. It's not about what I want. It's about what they need and are willing to pay for.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an amazing story. All right. Now, so tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do.
Yep. So what I do is, because I had to bring in my business analyst skill set. So my goal is, what is the foundation I can help a small business owner lay to springboard them into success? So what I do is I lay the foundation of your search engine optimization. And all that is when your ideal client goes into Google and they're trying to Google their problem, I want my client's services to pop up as the cure to that problem. So I work on, and because of that, my optimization focuses on who your ideal client is. Backlinks and schema and all those other fun words all work into this, but the true focus of what I do is more on the marketing side. Who's your ideal client? What is the problem that they need fixed, and how do you solve it? And then we focus on, what does your ideal client say? And those are the words we work into your website and your social media. And by the end, we've developed a social media strategy, or digital marketing strategy that works for you based on your ideal client, and then it doesn't spread you all over the place. So
someone's listening right now and they're like, I know what my ideal client's problem is mostly.
Yep.
What advice would you give them to be able to narrow that in to something that you could use?
So the first thing I would do is, it's really helpful if you have an intake form, because you can go through that intake form and look at how are they phrasing their problem, and think about, that's the phrasing and variations of that phrasing that you want on your website. If you are a new business and you don't have that really easy intake form, you need to get out and network. You need to talk to people. You need to find out. That's really how I got to where I am today. Is I had to throw my business plan out the window. Clearly, I couldn't go out and meet people. So I'm like, I'm networking. And while I'm networking, I'm listening to like, there's always the conversation. Okay, so what's your business problem and what are you looking for? And more I was hearing, and then with the news and doing some additional research, and I'm like, okay, this is what they need. They don't have visibility. So I was able to, and then I did have to hire someone to work on my messaging because I'm really great at analyzing numbers. Words are not my thing. If someone already has them and I can shape them, awesome. But yeah, I'm not always perfect when it comes to creative content like that. So I hired someone to help me with my messaging. Is basically, you need to reach out and do that when you need to.
Well,
But
it's hard to do it for yourself.
it is.
Because you're in it. You're in it. You need someone to pull it out of you.
Right. Yeah. It's like I'm sitting there talking to all my clients, and we're just like, so I always do like these brain sessions where we're just in our meetings, we just let the words fly, and they'll always be like, oh my God, Amy, you just said it. I'm like, crap, what did I just say? Because it just comes so naturally for someone else.
Right. You're like, thank goodness we're recording this so I can go back to the transcript later.
Yes.
Now, what I appreciate about what you're saying, or what I'm hearing, is that you're helping people get found. And normally when I hear people talk about that, it's all brick and mortar. Only that's not your only person, is it?
So here's what's funny. I started my business to work with retailers. I have yet to work with an actual brick and mortar retailer. Everybody I work with is service-based. Well, mostly, but they're online in some way already. So the closest I have to a brick and mortar retailer is I'm working with an artisan who makes handcrafted ceramic light fixtures. So she's actually a manufacturer, like manufacturer artisan. That's the closest I get to retail, but everybody I work with is service-based. So from software to health and wellness to a lot of coaches, like I'm all over the field, but I haven't quite gotten into retail yet. And I think a lot of that is people in the service world don't understand that you can still use Google and a Google business profile to jumpstart you. Like they think it's just for brick and mortar, but it's not. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, because that's when I hear SEO and things like that, I was like, whatever, I'll throw out a keyword here or there, because truly time management and productivity, like I'm going to be, on page 8,000 of it, because it's such a, such a huge saturated space. So I'm like, whatever. So you're making me rethink mine right now.
Well, and not everybody that is looking for time and productivity are looking for the same things.
Right.
So what's your ideal client looking for? They're not really looking for time and productivity management. They're looking for, they have a problem.
Right.
What's the problem?
So it's switching it all in my head right now.
Right.
I'm like, whatever, because I work with very few clients in my location, like geographic location. They're all over the place. Yeah. So it's like, blah, 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 SEO. So I'm super you're our guest today. So what would you, if someone is just starting, completely just starting, what would you say is their first step?
Hands down, first step is create your Google business profile. And it used to be Google My Business, but now it's Google Business Profile. Like within the last few months, Google again changed their name. Go figure. They do that a lot. But that is really your first step, because it forces you to get all your base information out. So for listeners who are old enough to remember going into a library with card catalogs, I want you to think about it this way. Google is the library of websites. Your business profile is the index card that you're filling out for Google, right? So Google is going to go down its index, and it's created a much bigger index, but that your business profile page is a good section of how they understand what you do. So that's where they're going to be pulling. So if you have a business profile filled up and set up, you are now ahead of the game against other businesses, because service-based industries don't use a business profile. So now you're giving yourself a leg up in your industry.
Good tip. And you also have a resource around this.
Yep. So if you go to firststepinseo.com, spell out all the words, firststepinseo.com. It's a website just for the resource. And once you get that first step done, my blogs are also there, so you can get your next steps after that. So it's a whole website just for your first step in SEO resources.
I love that you're able to get the URL.
I do too. Like, yes, it'll be easy to give people now.
Yes. Now, what differentiates you from other people who do SEO work? Because there's a bazillion people out there, and I know your story is obviously different, but there's other things about how your process that's different.
Yeah, there's a lot. So a lot of SEO, there's a lot of con artists in my industry, and that's unfortunate. So what I do to separate myself is, one, I do focus on the ideal client side, not the backlinking. Like, it's important, but it's not priority, because Google changes their algorithms, which everyone knows that big word, right? Okay, so they change their algorithms 500 to 600 times a year. So if you focus on the tech side, you'll never keep up with how Google changes things. So I focus on your ideal client, because that's going to change here and there. And that's just a keyword change here or there. It's much easier to stay in front. And Google doesn't like it when you focus on they call you gaming the system if you focus on the techie side and not the user side. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I document our process. Like, we have a Google Drive that I share with you, and I document all changes. You have my to-do list is open to you. Our agendas for every meeting are posted. Like, I make sure you are just as aware of what I am doing, so it doesn't feel like I'm just doing something behind the scenes and it's magic, because it's not. It's really intensive work that I have to do. Like, people don't understand that, like, as a consultant in this world, I don't just talk to you and then go away. I talk to you and then I do the work. Like, I schedule my meeting with my clients, and then I block time after our meeting up to, an hour to 2 hours to get the work done, so that my schedule is always client and work time, so I can get it done right away and not leave you hanging. And you can see when things get accomplished. So yeah, I'm definitely not normal in this industry.
Well, it's a perfect transition into my next question, because I love that you have this time management process that you use around, because people, oh my God, like 1,000 words in my head right now. But like, I coach, and people often think, oh yeah, well, you only work whatever, 10 hours a week or whatever. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, the magic it takes a little bit for the magic to happen, and that is not necessarily happening while we're talking. Like, all that stuff that's going on behind the scenes before and after. And so the fact that you utilize your calendar so well to be able to say, okay, here's client time, and then here's work on the client project time, is, in my experience, not common. So yay, super excited about that.
I'm pretty sure that's because I'm a business analyst, and I'm so used to working with like stakeholders and having to work my schedule around everybody else's calendar that, but it doesn't mean I don't have my own issues.
And again, perfect segue. So let's talk. One of the things that I know from the work that I do, and it's so funny because, as you kept saying, get to the root cause, I was like, oh my God, I say that all the time. But we all have productivity bottlenecks. Like, there is something that keeps us from accomplishing whatever it is we're trying to accomplish in the day. And it's kind of like a moving target. Like, sometimes it's this big one, and it may be with us for months. And sometimes there's something else that just pops up randomly. Like I had a major one. I just wrote a e-blast on it recently. I was like, this
Saw it.
doesn't happen very often, but man, here it is, and everyone's going to get to hear about it. So
Yes.
what I'm wondering, Amy, is what is right now, what's preventing you from accomplishing everything that you want to accomplish in a day?
Oh, yeah. So my issue for like the last year has been that I haven't hired a staff yet. And I'm not hiring a VA, I'm hiring actual team members to help me with my workload. So, because my goal is, how many small businesses can I help? So this is the year where I'm like, okay, so I got through 2021, but I had to shut down, I had to actually shut down my books and not take on new clients by the end of June because I didn't have room on my schedule, right? So that's where my fantastic schedule has now come up, where I'm blocking time and seeing how many people I can get on a schedule. But I still have to find time now between all that to actually hire someone.
And tell me more about, oh, there you go. Tell me more about the hiring someone.
Yeah, that's a process. And it's and it's coming down to, how do I manage the time of getting everything, or the outline of getting someone set up and getting them on board and trained, because you can't just come in and do what I do. Like, I've got to train you on Google My Business. I got to train you on Google Analytics. I have to train you on the SEO standards of website copy, which is why I don't get along well with the designers. We kind of don't mesh well. But so, and then looking for those specific things, but then I have the additional of, because I am visibly disabled, like I walk around with crutches and I struggle to find employment, I'm going to give opportunities first to those who are less likely to be hired. So now in my schedule, I've got to actually work out and carve out time to focus on that. And it's like, it needs to be a priority, but it hasn't been a priority. Like, I know it should be.
Right. Because otherwise it's that catch-22.
Yep.
I have too much work. I need to hire someone. I don't have time to hire someone because I have too much work. And you just spin and
there's my bottleneck.
Yes. And so what I'm hearing you say is you want to hire someone to come in and do some of the technical, not technical as in tech,
right?
The work,
the workload, yeah.
The working in the business work.
Yes.
Okay. What about admin stuff? Are you currently, do you have any, like you said, I'm hiring a person, not a VA. Do you have VAs on staff already, or?
Like, literally I'm doing everything on my own. Like, it's,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So when we look at this bottleneck, hiring a full-time person to do, so what I'm hearing is do client work.
Yeah.
Okay. So to hire someone in to do client work, you have to free out some space in your day. And in order to free that space out in your day, you want to look at what is the easiest thing, the low-hanging fruit, the easiest thing to share with someone else, to move off my plate, to open up space. And that is not going to be client work. It's going to be admin. Usually it's admin type stuff. So if you can find things that you do over and over again. So you teach someone, it takes you 15 minutes, 20 minutes to teach them how to do it. And then they do it, and then they do it 15 times in a month.
Yeah.
You now have gained back whatever that is, 4-ish hours. In magical Lisa math. Like as soon as I use that example, I was like, why did I not come up with like easy numbers? But whatever. But I think that's the place, because you're right. Teaching someone client facing work is a huge load on the front end.
Yep. And part of me
gain on the back end.
Yep. And part of me looks at, if I can bring someone on to do like the Google My Business work, because that's easy to teach. The certification for it is like 30 minutes. So it doesn't take long. And that would be, and then they don't have to be client facing, like they can still be on the back end, and then I can just work with them on the back end doing the work. So I kind of look, and I think this is what I get so bogged down in details, because that's just, I'm a business analyst. I gotta figure out the details.
Now look, low hanging fruit. So if it's the
Yeah.
Google My Business piece, or, you know, and I threw out admin because I know for me, that was mine. Like the first thing I delegated was all my email and newsletters. And like, that was the first thing, because anyway, we aren't even going to go down that path, but like that was the first thing, like, ooh, that is getting off my plate. You know, and so on your end, if it's the Google My Business stuff,
Yeah.
then, because once that's off, it opens up a space that you can then use to look at the next thing. So you're looking for the lowest hanging fruit.
Yep.
Always.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when you talk about Google, teaching someone the Google My Business stuff, how would you, not specifics, but in general, how would you teach them?
Honestly, it would be one of those things where I do 3 ways of teaching. So I start with a video. Everybody has different ways of learning. So I'm very cognizant of making sure I hit all 3 and find out what works best for them. So I have a video. So the first thing I do is I have them watch the video, and I walk them through on the video of what I do. The second phase is we're going to talk about that video and we're going to answer your questions, but I'm also have transcripts of the video. So if you need to see the video while reading, you've got both. So I'm touching the reading, I'm touching on, we walk through it, which is going to be time intensive in the beginning. However, they're set up so much better for success that I can, you know, after like 30 days of me like watching over their shoulder and being the micromanager as an instructor for 30 days, I can be like, okay, I'm going to step away now. What can you do? And then I go back and check the work so that we can still work out because it takes 30 days to get a grasp of what your job is, but it takes a full year to get your feet grounded and comfortable. So it's really this part of what made me so successful in the retail world and how I could bring in so much change is because I understood my people were my business. And I don't mean external, my internal.
Your
they
internal
have
team
to be taken care of. I had one of the lowest turnover rates in the retail industry. Like on an app, my highest turnover rate in a year was 1%, when most retailers see 75%. So whole other topic, but take care of those people. So, and that's what I would do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, and that's the other side of it. I realized this. So now I'm like, okay, so now I got to make sure my schedule is squared off. So, okay, now I've got this time blocked just for training, so I can let them train them and then let them do the work and then go back and reevaluate, because it's going to take time.
Absolutely. So have you started creating that first video yet?
Yes, it's yes, I have the first video, and I actually have the first outline of what it means to introduce a new person to my company and what the expectations are. My goal is to make sure that they understand that they're welcomed and their feedback is important, but I'm going to be there. I'm not just going to drop them in and say, have fun. That's not the goal. So I'm really making sure that when the first person comes on, at least the initial 3 months are good. After that, it's going to be like, okay, we're learning this together. Give me feedback.
Yes. So for those of you watching, one of the things that Amy's doing now that we teach a ton in our Delegate Like a Pro class is she's recording as she's doing versus scheduling time out to record outside of the actual doing, because now you're doing the work twice.
Yep.
And so yes, good job. Good job.
And here's what's interesting is I do that for my clients too. So when I'm doing my SEO work for you, you're not going to be able to do everything I did. So I make a how-to video of every step and process I do that you're going to need to know how to do. So I'm reusing those and being like, okay, so when we train my new employee, this is a training I did for a client, and this is what we trained on using this website and these plugins. here's what you need to know. So now they can see how I talk to clients, while not actually having to be client facing yet. Cause I'm not going to throw people into client facing, like in front of the client right away. That's like, no, let's get you comfortable with the work.
Yes. So if we look at your bottleneck is you need to hire someone.
Yeah.
But if we dig in a little bit deeper to that, the bottleneck is really getting the training together on whatever the low hanging fruit stuff is.
Yep.
That's your first step.
Yep.
And then going from there. So how much time are you blocking out in your calendar for this?
It hasn't been a priority. So that is what this year's about. I'm a big believer in hiring coaches. So I hired my coach for this year to help me get through this. But yeah, hasn't been a priority. So I need it to be a priority. So right now what I'm doing is, as I book my contracts, I'm looking at, and now once I've got all the contracts are done and I've got everybody on the calendar, then I have to go through and figure out, okay, what time, because I always square time off for my business. Mondays are typically the day that it's all about me and my business, but that's about as far as I go. Like I could just work on anything. And now it's time to take that time and say, this block of time is just to focus on hiring and training what you need, so that when you bring that person on, you're good.
Yeah. And so there's the actual bottleneck. Because like we think it's this huge thing, which of course hiring someone
and in California,
like recognize I can't do it all.
Yeah.
You know, and so you're there, you're like, I can't do it all. I need to hire someone. And then it's like, okay. And, you know, when we sift down the next place, it's like, okay, well, what do we need? Well, I need to have a good training system so that they don't just get dropped in the, you know, let's make this whole process efficient. What do we need? And then there it is. And you already have the time on your calendar.
Yeah.
Because you have Mondays open. And so then it's like, okay, now what? And the now what is to define what happens in those Mondays.
Yep. Yeah. You know, the basic of marketing and finance aren't cutting it. It's got to be drilled down to what is it I really need to work on.
Yeah. And you're almost there. So look at that. We walked through it. And this is so typical of a bottleneck. Yeah. Because like when we look at it, the big one, it seems a little overwhelming.
Yes, it does.
And I use little in air quotes there for us, Amy. It seems a little overwhelming. And so instead, we can just keep digging till the final thing. And now you know what it is.
And it's so funny is how often do you work with my clients? And they're like, that's what I do for my clients, but I'm in this situation, so I didn't see it.
Right. You know what? Someone shared with me once, it was the best quote. You can't see the frame when you're in the picture.
Oh, is that not perfect?
Yes.
Yeah. That's
true. My favorite when people, like when my clients will say to me, how can you do that? I'm like, because I'm not the one. Yeah. You can't see the frame when you're in the picture. And so that's what's happening totally for you, because you do exactly what we just did for your clients. Just from a marketing end. Right. All right. So let's fast forward. We're going to fast forward 6 months. Employee hired, doing, you know, the Google business stuff, whatever the other low hanging fruit may be. All of this is off your plate. It's all awesome, which means you've created for yourself a 25th hour. Extra on the day. How do you want to spend? How do you like to spend that extra time you have?
So I'm so business focused, being so into it. My 25th hour would be like, I finally get to get out and be, you know, working on the business and just focus on where else can I spread the news to get more people to help. So for me, I would get to do more networking. I would get to do more presentations. The eventual goal is I'm already in the process of wanting to start that second business, focused on my story and, you know, the disability and all that, and be a motivational speaker and coach is like the next step. But I don't want to leave this company. Like there's so much I can do here, but I need the team to take care of that client work so I can focus on the other side of it, because that's where we're gonna, because I love sales. Like I am not that, I'm like, no, put me in a sales ring, let's go. And I thrive there. I love meeting people and talking to them. And even if they never work with me, I'm going to help you as much as I can. Because if reality is anybody can do what I do, it's, do you have the time to do it? And when you don't, that's when you have to hire someone to help you. And that's when I'm available for you.
Right. Well, and you say anyone can do what I do. I would say no. Like you have a skill set, you have, but there's, what do they say? There's an art and a science to marketing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so you understand the science,
Yep.
but you also can bring in the art.
Yep.
And so that absolutely is not something.
I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Like I will show you the steps and we'll move from there. But yeah, it also helps though when people can see what the work is I do. I can sit here and talk about it all day, but until you see it, it's like it's truly mind-blowing when it comes down to the specifics for your company. And every client and people that I've talked to, I've had coffee chats that go into a business contract. And I'm like, that's not the point of a coffee chat.
You're like, well, thank you. I'll totally take it.
But it is, it's, yeah, when you see the work I do, it makes a huge impact, and yeah, my clients see like a 700% increase in organic traffic from the day we start to the time we're done. Yeah,
which is awesome and amazing. So I'll ask you the question that you ask your clients. What is your ideal client's biggest pain point? What's the problem they're looking for?
It goes between visibility, but a majority that I'm seeing now are, because your ideal client is constantly shifting. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of clients who they've spent money. They had a web designer come in for their website, but it didn't really do them any good. You spent maybe $3,000, maybe you spent 25 grand, but you're still working just as hard to bring that next client in. That means your website's not working for you. And bottom line is I'm going to come in and get your website found so people know to look for you. So that's the next. It's like, you've got a website, and how do you know? How do you measure? I actually got started because of Google Analytics. That's really, because I can find human behavior and numbers like nobody's business. But it turns out Google My Business is where I need to put a lot of focus on, because that really is your first step. So, but yeah, it's people who don't know if their website's working for them, and I show you how to make it happen.
So what's the best way for people who have the problem you just identified to get a hold of you?
There are two ways. You can go to the anymainstreet.com. It's my new URL for my website, not my company name yet. My company name is AMG Innovative Consultants, and that was a really long URL. So now it's Any Main Street, because I can work with anybody, any industry. Otherwise, you can go to firststepinSEO.com. You can also get my scheduling link there as well. Or Google me and do the appointment link on Google My Business.
Oh, there we go. Love that. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to take some of your time to educate me and everyone else who's listening in, and sharing your story and being open to share your bottleneck with us.
Well, thank you. It was very eye-opening. And it's not as scary anymore. That's the big thing, is it just feels so overwhelming and scary, but you helped get through that. So
yay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Finding your productivity bottleneck can be tough. You just watched Amy walk right through it. If you happen to realize that yours is delegating, then I invite you to check out our Delegate Like a Pro masterclass. It'll help you figure out what's your low-hanging fruit that you can move off your plate. What's the easiest way to do that, so that you can gain an hour, 2 hour, 3 hours a day to do the things that you really love to do with your business.